Good evening. I think we're going to get started here. If there's a couple more people that will join us, that'll be fine. Tony is going to keep an eye out for anybody else who might be joining us tonight. First of all, really on behalf of the Santa Clara Valley Water District, I really want to welcome you to the Rinconada Water Treatment Plant. We appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us. We have a lot of good information to share with you about the Reliability Improvement Project. First of all, I'm Angela Chung. I'm the Deputy Operating Officer for the Water Utility Operations and Maintenance Division. And gosh, I've been with the district for, well, first of all, logistics. They don't want me to forget the logistics. There's, as many of you have found out, there's coffee and cookies in the back. There's actually a lot of cookies in the back still, so help yourself to more cookies. Restrooms are just outside the door, and I believe everybody has signed in, but if you haven't signed in the front table, please remember to do so, because the project team will have updates and information that they will want to share with you even after tonight's meeting's over. So I've been with the district for 12 and a half years, and I can remember ever since I joined the district, we've been working on a project to improve this plant in one way or another. And I'm just really excited that we came up with this concept that we're going to be sharing with you tonight here. It's a project that many of us have been involved with for so long, and I'm looking at I'm looking at Ken Baker here in the back. He's here tonight. Ken's been a plant supervisor here for 15 plus years, and even after he retired, this is how dedicated we have of the employees of the district. Even after he retired, he's back here helping us with the project. So this plant has been built. This plant was built in 1967, commissioned in 1968, and has been really in operation continuously ever since then. It's by the time the Reliability Improvement Project is over, this plant would have been in service for 50 years. So we're here tonight to work on this Reliability Improvement Project to take this plant through the next 50 years. The plant withstood the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake with some damages. It took about 6 months' time to really restore the plant. We know that the San Andreas Fault is going to have, I don't want to say a very probable, but you know, there's a good probability that there could be a magnitude 6 something or 7 point, could be 7 something magnitude earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. We want to make sure that this rebuilt plant can withstand that kind of a seismic event, because as we learned from even the recent event in Philippines, really having reliable, safe drinking water is the first in recovery from a major disaster. So we think it's very important that the rebuilt plant can withstand a seismic event that's possibly more significant than Loma Prieta. The other thing is, over the last 50 years, there's a number of regulatory requirements that have been imposed on facilities like us. And you know, we really don't mind meeting regulatory requirements. In fact, we want to exceed those requirements. We want to meet customer expectations. So this plant is not just going to meet the bare minimum regulatory requirements when it's completely revamped. We also want to produce good drinking water that many of you have come to expect from a utility like us. So we want this plant to really be one that can produce great, safe drinking water for this community all the way up to Mountain View, which is the area that we serve. First, I don't want to take up too much time because there's really a great program ahead here tonight. First of all, I want to introduce some people who are here tonight. The first and foremost is that we have one of our board of directors here with us tonight, Director Brian Schmidt. He represents District 7, which is this neighborhood up to Mountain View. Palo Alto, all the way to Palo Alto. And also we have here tonight Catherine Oven. She is the Deputy Operating Officer for our Capital Division. She's going to be responsible for carrying out the planning, design, and construction for this project. Next up tonight we have, of course, Steve Twitchell, who's in the back here. Steve is the Rinconada operations supervisor. He really calls his plant his own home away from home. He's here many a days, even sometimes weekends. I know he really works very hard for this plant. And we have Mike Munson here. Mike's actually our engineering unit manager, who's also a project manager for this project. He's going to be coming up here in a little bit to share with you the plan that we have for this facility. And we have Philippe Daniel. He is with our consultant, CDM Smith. He's been working on this project with us for a number of years now. And of course, I don't want to forget Tony Mercado. He is our neighborhood liaison. He is going to be the link between us and the community, which is you. I think if you have seen any flyers, any updates from us, you've seen his name, his photo, and his contact information. So he's going to also come up here in a little bit and tell you a little bit more about how you can get a hold of him if you need to. So without further ado, I am going to turn this over to Director Schmidt, who's going to say a few words.
So hello everyone, and thank you, Angela. It feels really formal here in front of this microphone, but I guess it's probably helpful for purposes of the video that we speak into the microphone. So I just want to thank you all for coming today. It is really important for us to have this project move forward, and important for us to be communicating with the people that live nearby here. So we're really glad to have you here. As Angela mentioned, I represent this area. I represent the city of Los Gatos as part of the district up at the Santa Clara Valley Water District. So this project being my area, I'm paying close attention to it. Been to a number of prior meetings, and we'll continue to go to these. It's all about improving reliability. Angela touched on the seismic issues, and it's just really important to us to do this upgrade, similar to what we've done at our two other water treatment plants. And that upgrade and the improvement, it is necessary, but necessarily brings challenges, especially when work takes place in a neighborhood, in places like where you all live. So the district doesn't take any potential inconvenience to you lightly. And I don't take it lightly either. So we're committed to trying to engage with people as we move the process forward. I can see it mainly as occurring in two different parts. We're right now in the preparation component of working on this reliability improvement project. And for purposes of avoiding any inconvenience for you folks, it's about engaging and understanding how it's going to move forward. And that can help us prepare in a way that minimizes any potential inconvenience. And then the next phase would be execution. And that'll be another time where there'll be additional opportunities for contact and communication, make sure things are executed in the way we anticipated they'd be executed. If it deviates from that in a way that's bad, that you have a chance to contact folks and to try and fix and resolve any problems that happen. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to answer any questions you have today as we go through the presentations. And I'm sure if there's anything we don't know yet, we will try and get that information to you as soon as possible. And the staff is going to be available at any time, both during the meeting, of course, and then afterwards, and I'll be able to stay around afterwards and talk to anyone as well. And as Angela mentioned, Tony's information, contact information is all out there as well for everybody. The other thing I'd like to offer people as well is a contact that's not as good as Tony, and that's me. So, and what I've done, and I'll do now, is my personal cell phone. So if there's something going wrong, staff probably know first what's going on and how to fix that. But if that's not working out, I'm your representative. I was elected to represent you. If you want to talk to me, my cell phone number, which I'll give right now, is 415, back when I lived in San Francisco, 415-994-7403. And if you look at the email addresses, like Tony's email address, it's first initial, last name @valleywater.org. Mine's the same. My last name is Schmidt, so it's bschmidt@valleywater.org. So again, I just want to thank everyone for being here. Looking forward to hearing what are the latest news I was asking staff for the latest news, but I'm looking forward to hearing that as well. And let's proceed with whoever's next.
Next, I'm going to ask Steve Churchill to come up here and say a few words about this plant that he has come to love as a second home.
Well, good evening. Again, thank you for all coming out this evening. This is a great showing. I'm very happy. And thank you, Angela. Again, my name is Steve Twitchell. I'm the treatment plant supervisor here at this plant. And as Angela says, we spend a lot of time at the plant. We have a great staff to ensure that the product that we're delivering is safe for our neighbors. It's very important. We take it very seriously. So I want to give you kind of a brief history. Angela mentioned that the plant was built in 1967 for the Santa Clara County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, which is the predecessor to who we are today. It took 2 bonds voted in 1962 and 1963 before the voters approved the funding to build the water treatment plant, which also include dollars for the South Bay Aqueduct link-up and conveyance and distribution facilities. Rinconada is the oldest water treatment plant in the district. As was mentioned, it's coming up to a 50-year lifespan. The plant's run 24/7, 365 for the best part of those years. So, you know, she's tough, but you know, it's time for some rehab. We sit on, I was over listening, we actually sit on a 40-acre parcel up here, and the plant is rated at 80 million gallons a day. And we do reach that capacity year after year. Water storage in every system includes reservoirs, aqueducts, pumping plants, as well as the distributaries to all of our retail customers, which include, as we mentioned, Mountain View, Santa Clara, Sunnyvale, and so on. So, I'm not going to take too much of the time up today because we have some great people speaking. But I also want to put out my hand that I've also heard a lot of people weren't aware that this plant was up here. They've lived up here for many years. And so after the program is all said and done, I would love to make time for anybody that's interested and give an impromptu little tour and show you basically the plant from this upper level. So if anybody's interested, just see me after this presentation and I'd be happy to show you the plant. So with that said, thank you very much.
Okay, so next up is basically why we're here tonight. We have Mike Munson, our engineering unit manager, and I don't know if Philippe's coming up or just Mike. Okay, so I guess you're coming up here too, Philippe. So they're going to take over and show you what we're planning to do for this plant with the slideshow, with the presentation.
Thanks, Angela. Again, my name is Mike Munson. I'm the project manager for the Rinconada Reliability Improvement Project. That's what we're here to talk about tonight. Philippe Danielle is our prime consultant on the project. Like Angela mentioned, Philippe's been working on the planning phase and now on the design phase of the project, and on previous projects here at Rinconada for a very long time. And so we bring a lot of experience to the work that's going to be done in the future. And also I'd like to acknowledge again Ken. Ken's been an invaluable resource and help, and just really pitched in and made a lot of good work on our design work that we've been doing so far. So tonight, let's see if I can get this started. We have a little slide presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the background, what kind of work's going on in design. A little bit, Philippe's going to handle the architectural and landscaping concepts. So the architectural and landscaping work is all being performed by sub-consultants to CDM Smith. And we want to talk a little bit about the environmental process, and then some work about other capital projects, a little mention about other capital projects. In fact, I'd like to acknowledge Todd Inman's here. He's the project manager on another project, and we're going to look at a little information about that project. And then at the finish, we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up in the near term and in the long term. It's been mentioned a couple of times that the plant was commissioned in 1968, and it's kind of hard to imagine what the landscape must have been like 50 years ago here in Los Gatos, but you get a little sense of how barren the hills are all around here, and what a huge construction project this was at the time. And you think about the kind of equipment that we're so used to seeing now. 50 years ago, the equipment was much more primitive, but the plant was well designed at the time. A leading consulting engineer that does water treatment plant projects designed this plant. It was built by a quality contractor, and like Steve said, it's been a tough bird. It's hung in there. We work it pretty hard at capacity a lot. It has essentially reached its useful life, the end of its useful life. What we're going to do is essentially change the whole treatment process out here at the plant. Right now, and if you go on the little tour with Steve, or if you look at some of the aerial photographs around, you'll see that the plant has 4 big clarifiers. We're going to replace those clarifiers with what's called a flock-sed basin, and we're going to put an ozone contactor in front of the flock-sed basin. The ozone contactor will provide disinfection and also improves the taste and odor components of the water. At our other plants where we went through a similar retrofits about 10 years ago, we actually put the ozone contactor downstream of the flock-sed basins. So what we're doing here is called raw water ozonization instead of what's called settled water ozonization at the other plants. So we were able to benefit from some learning experiences at the other plants, and also from experiences that go with other utilities in the region that treat a similar water. The water we treat here at this plant is a little different mix than the water that's treated across the valley at our Penitencia and Santa Teresa plants, which have the settled water ozonization. And then we're going to completely change out the media filters, the filters. We have 6 filters here now. When we're finished, we'll have 12 new filters. And we're adding a feature to the plant that enhances the reliability by giving us a little extra contact time with chlorine, and essentially we're adding another 1 million gallons of clear well storage at the plant. Right now we have 2 million gallons of clear well storage, and we have if you can see on the aerial photograph there, you can see the Moore Avenue Reservoir, those 2 big rectangular reservoirs. And then up at the top is the Rinconada Reservoir, which belongs to the Water District. The Moore Avenue Reservoir belongs to the San Jose Water Company. So getting into a big project like this, ultimately this project's going to cost more than $150 million to build, to plan, design, and construct. One of the big issues or constraints with our design and our construction is that we have to keep the plant running the whole time that we're doing the work. And if you've ever remodeled your kitchen, you know that the easiest thing to do is to move to a different place and let the contractor remodel your kitchen and then move back. We don't really have the luxury of being able to move out and let the contractor come in and tear the place up and fix it up and put it back in service and then move back in. We essentially have to keep cooking in the kitchen while all the major components of the kitchen are replaced. Which leads us to these kind of issues that we're looking at right now, and we have been looking at the last year. And as Angela mentioned earlier, we're vitally concerned about seismic risk. Seismic risk is obviously a big issue with us. A lot of the people in this room were here in the '89 earthquake, and you know how that can tear up a water utility. And in fact, this plant had minor damage during the '89 earthquake, but we're designing a plant that we expect will withstand a similar earthquake in the future. Right now, the layout that we've developed so far for the plant. I'm just going to step over the second point. Includes, this is the ozonator that was on contactor. And this building here houses a generator that produces ozone. And then this is called the flocculators, and this is the sedimentation basin, and these are the flowing filters. We're going to look at this again over and over again in the next few minutes. And please feel free if I'm going too fast, or if I'm using language that you don't, that you need help with, or if you want me to stop and answer a question, feel free to interrupt me. I think it would make the presentation more interesting, perhaps. I have 3 slides here to kind of give you an overview. And we, living in earthquake country, we all know that there's no surprise that we're close to the San Andreas Fault, which is right here. This is our treatment plan. I think you get the idea of regional geography, but it's not just the San Andreas Fault that causes problems around here, and so we're designing to withstand earthquakes that happen on other faults besides San Andreas, including what are called I can't remember the name for it. Anyway, well, we have several little faults, the Monte Vista Shannon and the Oracle Fault. But these are little faults that line up next to the San Andreas. So if there's a major seismic event, the little faults sometimes shift more or less, and these smaller faults are a little harder to map, and we've spent a lot of time over the last 6 months mapping these faults, doing a lot of studies. One of the way you map faults like this is you look at aerial photographs and you look for the difference between 1930 and 1950 and 1980 and the current year, and you can see little places where things have changed, and you can kind of draw lines between them and interpolate and extrapolate where these faults are. And then we go back, and there's investigations have occurred for building construction where some subsurface information is available. The county is really involved in this a lot because it affects building permits and construction all over the area. So we work with the county and the town of Los Gatos to review the work we're doing and to share work with them, and they share work with us. And if you've ever applied for a building permit in the area, you know you have to do some studies to determine if you're in a fault rupture zone. So essentially we're in that stage right now. We've been doing all these studies, and right now we found that there is, this is a hard one. Well, I wanted to say trace, but I didn't say that word. Fault trace. This is the closest fault trace that comes through the plant, and what we have been able to understand through a lot of investigation, including borings on the site, and a lot of research, is that there's a very low risk of a fault rupture zone occurring under any of the footprints of the buildings that we're about to construct. This was a really big outcome of our work. It took hundreds of hours, thousands of dollars, and some really talented geologists and geophysicists to get to where we are now, that we have the certainty that the foundations of the buildings we're about to design don't need to be specially designed to bridge a fault. And we have shared information with local agencies, including San Francisco, that have had really big problems with this kind of situation, where projects they started that during the construction they actually identified fault traces they didn't know about and had to relocate facilities and essentially redesign their projects to move away from fault traces. It's kind of like a broken record, this part about keep the plant open. It's really an amazing relationship that we're setting up with Steve and his staff through the design review for our project, because we're all into this knowing that the biggest risks to the project are where things don't work, and we're trying to keep the plant working 24/7. So we're constantly thinking, how can we make this work and keep the plant going? We're also really worried, working carefully to make sure that we have a safe place for workers, and also that we're really cognizant of the neighborhood traffic safety issues. As you all know, oh, please. Oh, no, we know about that, the replacement of the Keto Road Bridge. We keep the lines of communication open with those people, but they tell us that, don't worry, it's not going to happen anytime soon. And so I got a really bad feeling the other day when I left, and I went down Bicknell and I started towards Keto, and I thought, oh my gosh, they've already started working on the bridge project, but it turned out it was a sewer replacement. Yeah, we're really concerned because potentially the Keto Road Bridge project, if there is delays and detours and there's a lot of unhappy people moving around that, they may end up on Moore Avenue.
That's the planned route.
Right.
Moore
Right.
Avenue, that's why I asked if it was going to impact you.
Yeah. No, as best we can, we're coordinating. Their project is tied to some federal and state financing, and they have a really pessimistic attitude, as far as I can tell, about it happening anytime.
They don't give out that.
They don't?
No, they're trying to get that done before they lose that.
Yeah, well, that's what, well, anyway, I can't, actually, the Water District is a partner in that project, and so we do keep, we keep tabs on it as closely as possible. We work a lot with the town of Los Gatos engineer. We meet with him probably every 2 or 3 months. Recently, we met, and he pointed out that right here on Moore, we were talking about traffic safety and detour routes and the Keto Road Bridge, and he pointed out that we actually have these 2 beacon signs on Moore Avenue that are the Water District signs, but that they needed some work. And then we checked it out, and it turned out they actually couldn't even see them because the trees had grown over them so bad. So I don't know if you noticed, but in the last couple of weeks, the town of Los Gatos crews have been out to trim the trees all along there. And Steve's crew is working on getting those lights fixed. They're little flashing beacons to warn people that there's a left turn, a T intersection coming up. So traffic safety obviously is going to be a really big issue because there will be a lot of construction traffic coming in and out of the plant. And our experience at Penitencia and Santa Teresa leads us to be really concerned about this because because our plants sit essentially in residential neighborhoods, that it's very important that we plan and execute a traffic safety plan that works, and works for the neighbors and for school kids. Rolling Meadows School down the hill. So our traffic engineer is working to develop schemes for that. We're looking at off-site places right now for staging the contractor, so he can keep equipment and personnel and offices perhaps off-site and reduce some of the traffic impact. So, yes, please. Oh, I wish I could say that. I wish I knew when their construction was going to be. If I knew when their... Well, that's actually not so... We're going to see our schedule here in a few minutes. That may not be such a bad conflict.
Other question, are you, as part of this project, considering the road improvements in the area around, and safety improvements or barriers, medians?
Not at this point. We work with the town of Los Gatos to make sure that we don't tear something up just before they're about to fix it. And as you noticed, there have been some improvements on Moore Avenue. There was a slip coat of the asphalt that performed recently. We're not certain how much damage our work will cause to Moore Avenue during the construction. We always look at the before and after picture, and we work with the local agencies to make sure that we return the area as best we can to its pre-existing condition. We are looking at, we're going to talk about it here in a minute, but I can't seem to get, it's a 3 or 4 way share, City of Saratoga, Town of Los Gatos, the Water District. And, right. Okay. Well, I'll definitely follow up on that this week, and I'll try to find, you don't know Kevin's last name, do you? Oh, that'd be fantastic. We're persistent. This is the work we do, so we can spend time during the day calling and emailing. Okay, in order to keep the plant operational while we're doing the construction, we approach this in a staged or sequential way so that we can build a component of the project while an existing component stays in service, and then at some point when the new component is finished, then we can take the old component offline. So this shows essentially how the plant looks right now. These are the clarifiers that I mentioned before, the 4 clarifiers. They're going to be gone when this is over. This is all going to be filled up, and the filters that are underneath here are going to be gone. So you can watch now in time-lapse photography. No. This is the first phase, and we provided at the top kind of an idea of the timeline with the total 45 months of construction, how each phase occurs. So, as Philippe was talking about a few minutes ago, what we have efforts right here on Moore Avenue in the very first phase is to look at providing improved traffic control and developing the access. The plant currently has a lot of traffic delivering chemicals, and just under normal operations, there's a lot of traffic that goes in and out of that lower entrance. So we have to find ways to continue to move that traffic through the plant while we're doing the construction. So that led us to some improvements that were actually started on already, and that's the first one up here is the new connector road, which gives us the ability to go all the way around the plant this way. And right now we don't really have that capability. The second phase is the construction of the ozone contactor and the flock sed basins. And this is a really big part of, obviously a big part of the whole total construction project. And you can see this goes on pretty much in the first 18 months of the project. You can see another feature that we're working on in the early stages is to start the landscape screening, and Philippe's going to talk a little bit about this in a few minutes. And this, we're going to talk a little bit towards the end of the project. These are all new improvements, but they're actually, we've actually already started on those. Those will be done before we start construction of the reliability project. So now we've got the new ozone contactor and the flock sed basins built, so we can take the clarifiers offline. And taking them offline is not like unplugging them. We're gonna flatten them. They're gonna go away, and they're all built of reinforced concrete, so it's gonna be a pretty big demolition job, you can imagine. And when they're gone, we'll have a flat surface there on both sides that's ready for the next phase of construction, which is the construction of the new filters on this side. And I think I'm just making the point that we can take the clarifiers offline. Let's see if I can get that. We can take the clarifiers offline because this component of the project is built and it's ready for service, because this flock sed basin here does the same thing as the old clarifiers do, basically. Excuse me. actually take those clarifiers offline, we really have to be certain that this works right. And so in some projects, we go through the whole project and then we do the commissioning and startup and the test. We do the testing, the commissioning, the startup, and we go into these operational modes that take a long time. Well, we have to do that step by step on this project. In fact, we have to do it here in the third phase, which is essentially halfway through the project. We have to go through and test and make sure that this new ozone contactor and the flock sed basins are working correctly before we can start the demolition of the clarifiers. And this goes back again to the 24/7 operations. We can't afford to say, oops, the clarifiers are demolished, and oops, the flock sed basins don't work, and we need to send back to the manufacturer for some parts or something. It has to be up and running, and it has to be thoroughly tested, and we have to have enough confidence that we can go offline with the clarifiers. So the fourth phase was to build the new filters. The new filters are really a beautiful piece of work. I'm so excited about the new filters because there's going to be 12 of them instead of 6. This is a big photograph here that shows the 6 existing filters here. These are the 12 new filters. And these filters are going to be a lot easier to operate. In fact, we're going to look at a slide a little bit later on, but we've started a filter. Oh, yes, Todd. Oh, sorry, please. No. That's,
We'll show you some pictures of what that looks like in a couple minutes to give you the visual of what it looks like.
that's coming up soon. The filter media pilot testing, we've already started to design the filter media that goes into new filters. And then finally, we can demolish the old filters, and basically at that point we've got a new operating treatment plant while we kept the old plant running through the whole construction. And you can see this is in the last phases of the project. And a lot of this at the end of a big project is cleanup, and just like when you remodel the kitchen, the last 10% of the work takes half the time, it seems like sometimes. So we'll be in a lot of what on a project like this we call it punch list, solving all the issues on the punch list. I mentioned just a minute ago that we're doing a filter media pilot test. This is what a filter media pilot testing facility looks like. This is the district's facility. And this way we test media under actual conditions with the real water that we're treating. We'll actually have a little ozone contactor set up, so we're actually putting ozone in the raw water. And that way we can optimize the filter media. And optimizing the filter media is really helpful for a lot of plant efficiencies, and which leads to reduced energy usage here at the plant, and a lot of operational efficiencies that make it easier for Steve to operate, fewer, less frequent backwashes, hopefully. Did I get that right? Okay. Anyway, another thing we're working on are potentially putting solar panels on the canopies in the parking lot, similar to this. If you've ever been to our headquarters building, you know we have canopies in the parking lot at headquarters where we have solar panels on them. And over on the left side is a picture of our hypochlorite system. One of the things that we added early on in design was a total refit of the hypochlorite system. Hypochlorite is another word for chlorine, or the kind of chlorine that we put in drinking water. And the system that we have here at the plant right now needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of preventative maintenance. It needs a lot of sort of emergency repairs, so we're totally refitting that. We are all, because this plant has to be 24/7, 365, we're the only source of water for all the way down the West Pipeline to Palo Alto. I thought we had the West Pipeline map in here, but we can't afford to be out of water, so we're adding backup generation to be sure that we can provide high-quality water even through a PG&E power outage of up to 72 hours, which turned out in the last 10 years there's been a total of 2 hours of outage from PG&E the whole 10 years. We're going to talk now about, and actually Philippe's going to take over and talk a little bit about the work that his sub-consultants have been doing. Help me out here, Steve.
Okay. Okay. This is, so the valley, the way the valley developed was, in the beginning, we basically, when the district, gosh, wish I read the history book of the district, but at some point, the valley here rely on groundwater as your source of drinking water. And when the district was formed, the district started building reservoirs to recharge a groundwater basin. At some point, our water source became not sufficient to sustain the population growth that we saw that was growing in this valley. So what happened was in the 1960s, we started importation of delta water into this valley. So our 3 treatment plants, Rinconada is the oldest one and the first one built in this valley, and our 2 other ones, Penitentiary and Santa Teresa, these are what we call surface water treatment plants. So these plants are built not to treat well water, because well water really is going through so many 100 feet of filtering, if you will. But these plants are built to take water from the delta and treat it to what it comes out to your tap. So these are major treatment facilities. And the reason why we locate them up on the hill, I always say the water treatment plants are always up on the hill, and the wastewater treatment plants are the ones on the lower by the bay. And it's because there is pumping to get this water here, no doubt, because there's a number of, as you know, there's a number of large pumping facilities bringing delta water up and down the state. But the reason why we're located up high is because we gravity feed from here all the way out to Mountain View. So we're not wasting this energy. So we rely on the fact that we're located in a high elevation. So we do still have to pump to get to our reservoir here. There's a clear well, and then there's a reservoir in this facility. But ideally, what we want to do is just gravity out of this plant. And that's so much more reliable if you have a PG&E outage. We talk about 72 hours of backup. This is the 72 hours is for a significant event where really PG&E power would not be available, and we'll need to bring in diesel fuel to continue the operation of this facility. The more we can gravity feed out of here and not use so much power in this facility, the better off we are in handling any kind of situation for us.
What Angela didn't mention was that it was a bit of a crisis that precipitated bringing in water from the Delta and from Hetchetchee, and that was there was so much groundwater extraction going on that the ground levels were dropping. So you had the subsidence, you had kind of some of the flooding that resulted at the time. You know, there was 2 separate entities, the flood agency and the water agency, that merged together under the District Act. So that was kind of also one of the precipitating factors about the insufficiency of groundwater alone. I was in this room for the first time 25 years ago, about this time. Remember, it was extremely hot weather, and because of that, one of the water sources down Pacheco Pass Way, San Luis Reservoir, had grown so much algae, it created really bad taste in the water, which was a bit of a problem for the people who were drinking the water. It was tasting bad. And so with a full head of hair, fresh out of grad school at Berkeley, I came here, and part of the work I started doing was looking at different treatment technology alternatives to address regulations, but also to make the water taste better. So at that point, I learned a word that I really hadn't used very much, and that was aesthetics. And by that meant taste and odor. So what I'm going to talk about is about aesthetics, but this time, not only the taste and odor of the water, but the aesthetics of how this facility is going to look when it's done. So we really had 2 different objectives. One is to enhance the look of the neighborhood, and the second is to reverse site security and safety. So what we're going to do is give you a couple of different shots. This is a 3D model we developed of the new facilities. This is kind of the current version. There's some minor tweaks that are happening. So this is a view going down Moore Avenue and going up into our little minaret about 100 feet off the ground, looking down and onto the plant. So this would be, if you're in Los Patios, go up further with your Google camera up in the air, and that would be kind of the view looking into the plant over more. So what we'll do now is give you a couple of different vantage points for how we envision things looking from different points of view. So back to your question earlier about what's it going to look like from Moore Avenue. Well, driving up Moore, this will be kind of the look you have. So what you see here is the first gate, first left turn. You can see the gate kind of design, and then what you're seeing in the background are these textured walls which have the filters, the new filters. So if you back up here, this structure would be what you're seeing. If we go down to Don's house, there at Capistrano, this is your current view as taken on August 14th. The new facilities are dropped into this, so you can see what the new facilities look like. Coming right up here, this is the ozone and the block set basin there, with the magic of 3D imagery and Bob Norbutus. This is what it looks like with kind of the landscaping. Now, one of the strategic choices we'll be making is the timing of the landscaping and which landscaping to start in advance of construction, kind of the timing and maturity. But this is kind of the view you'll see. So virtually, you really can't see much of anything there. In fact, it looks a little bit better than this view. It's a little bit more dense. So, yes, this is the corner of Capistrano and Grenada. Way looking up more. So then if we go to a view off of up above Moore on Los Patios, this is shot from the back. So this is the current view. Now this current view is marked by this open space. Sometimes this open space has vehicles on it. Sometimes it has equipment. Sometimes it has materials that are being stockpiled there, and you can see the telephone poles and wires. So how will it look with the new facility? Well, that's how the new facility goes. So you looked at the view of the valley, still basically see no impact on the actual mountains. You can see the top of the trees. You can't see the telephone poles anymore. This is without any trees, any landscaping. If we start some landscaping before construction, put some trees and planters there so they can get growing, and then add in the new facilities, then we have a variety of different things we can do with trees along that look. In fact, we looked at some different alternatives in terms of what that could look like. So look at this version versus this version is just selecting 3 different kinds of trees to kind of give a mix versus all the same trees giving a mix. But that's probably the most severe view of the plant in that location. So if you back up there, the existing view with the new facility, and then with landscaping A or B, that's kind of the look. What's that? Yes, so the town of Los Gatos, we met with them and they actually said, you know what, we just like trees. So the more trees, the better. So we're still in the process of selecting which trees, the density, the height of the trees. And if you actually have any strong preferences or ideas, so for instance, between this one and that one, let the project team know. We kind of selected this initially to kind of blend with kind of the array of trees, but maybe that looks better. But that's kind of where we are in terms of the visual appearance of the plant.
Are you talking about from the lower gates? That view won't change. The only thing I think might change a little bit is if there are canopies in the parking lot for solar, that might change it a little bit, but I'm not sure. sun actually kind of comes up over the building. Comes up this way, you can see it comes up from the outside. That way it won't be affected at all. We only have a few more slides. Tony's given us the wrap it up signal over here, so I appreciate your patience. And we want to allow some additional time for questions. As we go through these processes, one of the big things we're always looking at is the environmental impact report and how we stay on schedule for producing an environmental impact report. And a lot of the work to do the environmental impact report is already done. That's the studies of the biology, the studies for traffic, archaeology, as somebody mentioned earlier, this is a 40-acre parcel here. It's also the habitat for lots of critters, wood rats and different kinds of birds. And we understand there might be a few mountain lions and deers around here. I'm not sure. So we have, we study that and make sure that we're not impacting habitat in ways we don't want to. But overall, we expect to have the environmental impact report done by the end of the design project. I mentioned earlier that we have started work on what's called the Treated Water Valves Upgrade and Residuals Management Project. We actually started work on that in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Oops, sorry, I hate it when I do that. There it goes. This is going to be in construction now through 2015, and this is the new. You might have noticed it in some of the other renderings. This is down in the lower part of the plant, and this will help us handle the sludge that's produced by the treatment plant in a more efficient way, a less costly way, and that's under construction right now. And then Todd's project, Todd's the project manager for what we call the Operations Building Seismic Retrofit. We're in a building that was built in 1968 essentially, and when you look at that building now compared to the current codes and you think about where we are in the seismic fault zones, we need to be sure that the building is safe. It is the operations center for the whole plant, so in a big earthquake we need to have the operations building working. So Todd's working on a project that's in design now and be in construction in 2014 and 2015. And sometimes it's hard to realize how big this building is, but it goes all the way down 2 floors below where we are right now, and they're doing a lot of work to seismically retrofit the building. Tony's breathing down. Okay, I'm just. So where are we right now? We're almost finished with the presentation. That's one thing. We're working on the environmental impact report. We're continuing design through the end of next year. This is a big design project, and there's a lot of people working on it. We will have the project designed by the end of next year, and next year we start the process of pre-qualifying contractors. A really big step for us. We don't want problem contractors on the project. That can be a real nuisance and a real delays the completion of a project, and it just creates lots of headaches and additional costs. So we're trying to screen the possible bidders on our project down to a select few quality contractors. We expect to bid and award the construction contract in 2015 and start work as soon as we got a contractor on board. We're doing a lot of work right now to get ready for that. And so we're to the question, comments, and then we like to know how we're doing. If you want more information than we're providing, if you want a different format for providing information, Tony's going to talk about that a little bit now. We expect that we'll probably have another neighborhood meeting like this in 3 or 4 months when we have a little bit more to show you. We'll be a little bit further along with design. And we appreciate a lot of you came out for our first neighborhood meeting a few months ago, so we try to keep you apprised of how we're progressing the project. So I think at this point, oh, please.
Are there any changes to the tanks, the 3 huge tanks?
No, they stay the same. They're actually outside the scope of the project. The Moore Avenue Reservoir, which you can see in that aerial photograph there, is those belong to San Jose Water Company, and you might have noticed they've been replacing the roof on those tanks. Yes?
Mike, I think you're embarking on obviously a process of case. You say you but I've got this terrible imagined fear that we're going to be into this project at the same time we're looking into a road project and your avenue is going to be.
Yeah, well, I'm hearing that loud and clear tonight, and that'll be something that the town of Los Gatos tipped us off to almost a year ago to watch it, and we have been watching it over the last few months, but I need to make contact with this person at Saratoga that you're talking about. The people that are providing the district share in one of our units at the district, our community relations unit, have told me that they didn't think it was going to happen very soon.
I think she's exactly right. It appears that Saratoga, I know there are two other entities involved, but it appears that Saratoga is the only one invited.
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, a lot of these, I think somebody mentioned it earlier, a lot of times these are driven by the availability of funds that come from outside agencies. So if there's a deadline for using those funds, that would definitely drive the project. Well, I'm going to get a hold of Kevin tomorrow. What's funding our project? The project is funded through the water district's rates. We charge for the water we sell, and we use that money to borrow money to build projects. We use that money to pay for electricity and chemicals and capital improvements, and for the 650 some employees at the district. So not because of this project. This project, the rates that are in effect now anticipated this project, but I think maybe Director Schmidt might, or my boss Catherine might be able to speak to this. The rates will go up over the next few years. They're going up to manage inflation in other areas and other large capital projects. So that.
Anticipate rates will go up 9% in the year. Still better than the Chechen.
Well, I think that you might be remembering the experience we had at Penitencia, and we didn't clean the streets initially, and we learned that lesson pretty quickly, and that became a daily effort. That's one of probably 10 or 15 other efforts that we'll be making to reduce the impact of the construction traffic on the neighborhood. If you didn't hear what David was talking about, a lot of times trucks leaving a really big construction site like this carry a lot of mud on their tires, and they wheel out onto Moore Avenue, and all the mud flies off of their tires and onto the street. So typically in big construction projects like this, we'll be paying a street cleaner to come along every day and keep that clean. Yeah, you can see the clarifiers and the filters are a lot of concrete.
There's currently a walking trail that's behind here, back to this little area here. Does all that stay? Is that still going to be occupied for jogging area? Or is the road that you were mentioning you're constructing here going to change that?
No, I think that you're talking about down by our Granada Road.
There's no trail there.
Well, right now, that's one of the things we're looking at. Our objective is to reduce or eliminate any off-site parking during the construction project. We're not certain that we're going to make that yet, but we're looking at that right now. This parking lot out here, there's 110 spots in that parking lot, and we expect to use that whole parking lot for construction parking and for district parking. But we're not sure if that's sufficient or not. And if it's not, we're looking for places around inside the plant for parking. And if both the upper parking lot and inside the plant aren't sufficient, we may, at peak periods in construction, have to put some construction parking on the street. Any other questions? Well, this has been really nice. I appreciate all your attention, your questions, and Tony has a few wrap-up comments to make.
Yeah, just really quickly, because I know we're getting short on time, I just wanted to reemphasize a point that's been made all night about how communication and keeping everybody informed is a big priority for us. We in the communications unit take it seriously. Teresa Alvarado, who is the Deputy Administrative Officer and oversees communications unit, it's a big priority for her. I know it is for Director Schmidt. And so on one of the handouts outside, you'll see information on where you can contact me. You can get information on a blog that we have launched specifically for this project. It's the second one we've launched with the Water District in the last year and a half. The first one was for the Almaden Lake Restoration Project, and it has really just paid tremendous dividends in keeping people informed, answering their questions. That's the great thing about the blog. It encourages two-way communication, so you're able to leave comments, questions, and if you have concerns and or questions, we pledge we're going to get back to you within 72 hours. So by all means, feel free to contact us at any time. I'm sorry? Yes. In fact, we're still going to keep on doing mailers, and you'll receive more information on how to access the blog. And it should actually be live now. And all that information is on there, and you can access it at any time. You can even sign up. I'm sorry? Oh, the slides, yes. Yes, there will be a recap of this meeting on that blog in which there will be links to the slides. And also, since the meeting is being recorded, we will also post that on our webpage.
Tony, I tried to blog set.
We have an updated address on that. So the address that is on the page right now, we had to change it because it was already in use at the last minute. So the new address is rinconada.reliabilityproject.com. So that is the new address.
Okay, well, this really concludes this evening, and once again, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy evening to join us, and we hope that you have you can take away some information that will be useful to you, and certainly that you have now a lot of contact information to be able to reach out to any number of us if you have any further questions from tonight's meeting or anything related to our project or our operation, really, anything at all, feel free to contact us. Thank you very much. Good night.